everybody, welcome. So glad you're here for today's conversation on how distributed teams can thrive. Yes, thrive while running EOS virtually. I'm Lynn Askin, joined with my co-host Duke Revard. Together, we've worked with dozens, if not hundreds of leadership teams who don't share a physical office, yet still run incredibly powerful sessions. They build real traction and move faster than many in-person teams ever dreamed of. We know the challenges of Zoom fatigue, awkward silence, disengaged participants, or even just the general sense that virtual isn't as good. But we're here to flip that script. Today, we're going to be sharing some practical tips, some tools, some facilitation tips, some real life examples, how you can run virtual sessions that feel alive and connected, how you can get your team energized and aligned across time zones. We're going to talk about hardware, software, tools, disciplines, facilitation tips. We're going to show you all of our ins and outs of how we run our sessions, and we're going to help you bring out the best in your leadership teams. So no matter where they're logging in from, we're having great sessions. This is going to be fast-paced, and we're gonna just kind of share everything that we have, all the skills that we've gained in running virtual sessions. So buckle up, let's get into it. Duke, how you doing?
Doing well. Excited for the conversation, Len. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. I appreciate Duke. This is your idea. I mean, I love the idea of us coming together, sharing these tips and tools and tricks with the kind of the virtual community at large, maybe helping some other EOS implementers along the way who are either maybe scared of virtual or have this sort of stigma that in person's better and things like that. But as you well know, not all teams can meet in person. I mean, there are teams. Heck, my own team was all over the world, and so when you work with a distributed team, you got to do your best to be able to make these sessions, these long 7 hours plus or minus an hour a session, really, really powerful. So great hanging out with you today. How do you want to start? You want to start by maybe sharing a little bit about you, a little bit about your story, and then I'll kind of share, and then we'll dig into the material.
Yeah, absolutely. Love to, Lynn. So yeah, my first distributed team was a software startup in the commercial insurance space. I was in Texas. My co-founder was in Oregon. We were spending a lot of time every day on virtual meetings on Zoom. In fact, this was 6 or 7 years before COVID. Even before that, I was using GoToMeeting and Skype, if folks remember Skype. And so I've done that. And another time, I went in and led another international team that was distributed across multiple time zones, multiple countries. And it just wasn't economical to fly everyone together, even quarterly, given some of the budget constraints of a startup and some of the other things that we're working with. And so, yeah, been in a virtual setting many, many times. And of course, now as a professional implementer, have clients who are virtual. Have that software company now that has, again, people in 5 countries. We do get together annually for the annual, but the rest of the time we're really utilizing the tools that we're going to talk about today to optimize for a great experience and to do great work together. And it's easier than ever. I mean, there are more and better tools than there probably ever been to simulate live interaction, keep the energy, as you mentioned, going, and to simulate something like a live meeting that we would have if we were in a conference room together.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think we both believe that in-person sessions are incredible, and it's, you can do things in person that it's really hard to replicate in virtual. But like I said, there are some instances where this just has to be the case. And so our goal today is really to come together and figure out what the best tips are, the best practices that we can make virtual sessions really, really incredible. And so I'll talk about my background really quickly. I owned and ran a digital marketing agency for 26 years. My teams were distributed. We had team members in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Romania, Canada, all across the U.S., and several other places that I'm forgetting, South America, South Africa. And so we had no option for in-person sessions, and we met every week. Just, we ran on EOS. And so we had our level 10 meeting, everybody logged in, and we did it that way. And so I ran that agency for 26 years, built, scaled, sold that agency, and just fell in love with EOS, fell in love with the EOS process, became an EOS implementer. And then, of course, we're here to help other people do what we did. And so Really excited to be here today. I've worked with a lot of companies implementing EOS, and we've learned a lot along the way. Because, Duke, I think I'm about 160 sessions into my EOS journey. 72% of my sessions are virtual. So 112, 115 virtual sessions to this point. So we got a little experience behind us. I want to share all of that knowledge that we have with the audience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, there really are a lot of tips and tricks, and the EOS community. I remember coming in as an implementer and asking questions before my first virtual session, and multiple people were available to me, including you, Lynn, to help really think through all of the tips and tricks. And I was surprised by how many big and small insights there actually were that I would not have thought of had I just come in cold and just kind of opened Zoom and just went for it, right? And so I'm excited that we'll have the opportunity today to share some of those with the listeners. I think there'll be a lot of value in that, and just seeing that, man, there's some small things you can do, several things that actually stack up to create just a much better, we said, high energy session. One thing we could say even from the front, I think you and I have compared notes offline around this, is that our virtual sessions get as high a rating as our in-person sessions. And so that's a great signal that we're not losing people, that we're not creating a very, very diluted experience. All the while, we both said we love in person, and I happen to have more of my clients are in person than virtual, but I love the versatility of doing what's best for the team, optimizing for both.
Yeah, I think what you said there is really important. What's best for the team, and again, the expense sometimes of bringing a team together is just it's really difficult. You made a point earlier about when the EOS community and how we've kind of come together. And when I started in EOS, I had tons of experience on Zoom and those sort of things. And of course, I had experience with my own EOS implementer, Gerardo Escalona, who's amazing, and he led us virtually. And so I had some experience kind of watching him do that. But I came into the community, and I hate to start a list because I know I'm going to forget people, but people like Kelly O'Donnell and people like Ray Salinas that jumped on calls with me and helped me, and there's been others too for sure that I'm not thinking about right now. I just want to make sure I give sort of credit to the people who kind of came before us and shared their tips and tools too. Because at this point, I don't know where all of this knowledge came from. Some of it's certainly from me, some of it's from them. I just want to make sure that we're clear that me or Duke didn't necessarily invent all of this ourselves.
Yeah. One of the core values of EOS is help first, and there's so many in the community on Slack and that'll hop on a call, that'll share everything they know, and so that's just been something you and I know. The listeners might not know, but yeah, we're standing on the shoulders of so many people who are willing and generous with knowledge and all the tips and tricks. So we're excited to share those as well.
So where do you want to start? I think it'd probably be good to talk about sort of the differences and the things that we have to maybe facilitate differently on, sort of maybe best practices around just general Zoom meetings versus in person. What do we have to do differently here on Zoom, or what can we do to make sure the experience is really good here? And maybe you can share a few tips. I'll share a few tips. And together we can kind of build a nice resource for people who want to tackle this, kind of virtual setting.
Yeah. A great question, Lynn. I think, the rules that we have for in-person sessions, in-person meetings, even team health, all still apply in the virtual session. And so we talk about the EOS healthy rules of respecting time, showing up early's on time, getting uncomfortable with getting comfortable with what's uncomfortable, which is sometimes we say enter the danger. Somebody just saying the elephant in the room, the thing that needs to get discussed for us to build trust, have good discussions, solve problems, move forward together. And the things like no sidebars, right? No texting your work friend about the thing that's happening on the virtual session and triangulating that way. It's like have one conversation, not having multiple tabs open, which would be the equivalent of having your phone open in the session room and being distracted by something else that's not what we're doing here, that's not on the agenda for this session. And being open and honest, everybody participating. It's awkward in a session room if somebody goes most of the day without contributing, without speaking. It's equally awkward on a Zoom call. If we just never heard from Bill, right? He just never said anything all day. He was just there as a silent observer through the entire day. And so again, most of the all the rules that apply in any session with EOS, any level 10 meeting with EOS certainly apply in the virtual world. But what about you? What are some things that you feel like the audience should know about just general best practices before we even dive into hardware or software?
Yeah, I think that all of the things that you touched on are important. In addition to those, cameras on. Sometimes in the virtual world, people think like, oh, I'm just going to leave my camera off because that sort of thing. But no, we need cameras on. We need to have like a real face-to-face experience. So cameras on, microphones on. That's important for us to be able to communicate and speak up. And ideally, we're not. I think I don't know if there was a study or if this is a joke, but in the last couple of years, the most spoken words in the world were, "Oh, you're muted." When somebody's trying to speak and they've muted themselves. And so in the session room, we joke around like, "Oh, you owe me 5 jumping jacks." So every time that happens, I make my team, do jumping jacks, and it's something that Gerardo used to do with us, or push-ups or something. And so we got to make sure that the cameras are on. The microphones are on, or you're unmuted, and then we're participating. So, and again, part of that is the EOS implementers facilitation skills to call on somebody who hasn't spoken in a while and to pay attention. And one of the things that we do best in EOS is read body language. It's a little more difficult to do that in the Zoom session room, and so it's really important that you as an implementer are really kind of looking, because I want to know if you rolled your eyes. I want to know if you sighed when somebody said something. I want to know, because I want to call that out. I want to say, hey, you sighed when, John said that. Do you not agree? And because we're trying to have healthy conflict or healthy communication, we desire it in the session room, because that's how you build a great team. And so as an implementer, you got to really pay attention, and sometimes you got to really lean in. And I try and put my teams really big on my screen so I can look at them and I can watch them. And so,
I'm so glad you said that.
Those are just a few of the extra facilitation tips that are required on Zoom that aren't necessarily in person.
Yeah, you just nailed something for me, Lynn. I think proximity to the camera. You and I are having a conversation right now, and it feels fairly close to a simulated, a coffee you and I might have in a conference room, and it's easy for me to read your face, okay, and to track with your emotion. And humans, since birth, we've been reading human faces. We've been reading emotion on human faces. It's really important. When you see somebody who backs way up from the camera, is sitting back in their office chair this far away, right, and they're doing the thing, like you have no ability to actually read my face. And it's a cognitive load over the course of the day. And it's one thing if you're in an L10 for 90 minutes doing that, but if you're doing that for a virtual quarterly session and it's 8 hours, it's extremely draining for us to try to read your face and try to find out what Jill's feeling right now as she sits way back. And so it's simple, but we say, yeah, camera, facing your camera. If you have multiple monitors, good lighting, sitting as close as possible is actually a courtesy to your teammates, because they don't have to work as hard cognitively to know where you are. And it certainly helps the facilitator, like you're saying, to smoke out things that might be going on, tensions or disagreement or silent resistance to whatever's happening. And so, yeah, I love even the practicality of sitting close, bringing your full self so that others, again, can engage and stay engaged throughout the entire session. Great stuff.
Being present is really important. It's one of the reasons we asked you to put the phones away and whatever. We got to be here. We got to be here today. And these are expensive sessions for most teams. And your leadership team is or your visionary and kind of leadership is investing in the people in the room. And so it is important. Those are expensive. Like if you add up all the salaries, all the people in the room for 8 hours plus the cost of the session. We need to be really, really present those days. And so it's kind of our job as facilitators to make sure that they're getting the value for it. One of the things that you illustrated when you step back from the camera was the audio. And the audio kind of dipped out as you moved away from the microphone. So it's really important that we sit close. We have good audio, we have good video. And I think that was a great, sort of visual illustration of what happens when you kind of step away a bit.
Yep. No, that's a great segue, Lynn. Let's talk about hardware a little bit, because some of creating a virtual session that really does resemble an in-person session involves really thinking about the tech that we need. So yeah, let's start with you. Like, what are some essential tech best practices you found first with just hardware, the things that you need to have the tools to do it well?
Yeah, so I want to give you kind of the I don't know, the basics, I guess, at first, and then I've taken things to kind of extremes, and not everybody needs to do what I've done, but it starts with good audio and good video. Audio is probably the most important part of all of this. If you there's a saying that people will sit through bad video, but they will not sit through bad audio. And it's true on YouTube that, if the audio video quality isn't that great, but the sound is good, they'll still watch. But if the other way around, they won't. And so it's really important to have good audio. It's really important to have your microphones, connected well and those sort of things. And we can get into specifics about the microphone I use and the audio tech we use. But ultimately, the general rule here is just have really, really good audio, clear, microphone close. When it comes to cameras, I'm using a digital SLR. I'm not using a webcam, and many webcams are perfectly fine and have great video. I've kind of taken that a few steps further. I got a Canon DSLR with a really nice lens. I've got the sort of bokeh effect here with the kind of the blurred background just a little bit, and I've kind of dialed that in. I want you focused on me and not on all the junk in the back. I probably could have zoomed in a little more there and take my server rack out of the picture, um, but I think my video and audio quality, I don't think anyone would argue is really, really good. Part of the thing that happens, part of the reason my video and audio is good is not just the cameras, but lighting. I've got two different kind of Elgato key lights, kind of 45-degree angles. I've got another sort of newer box light above that's kind of showering light from above. And so video, audio, probably most important. Video and lighting are a close second. So those things are really important to get right. There's a wide variety of actual hardware that you can use. I can share mine I can share my tech in a list, or we can talk about it in a little bit. But
Yeah,
for the most part, that kind of covers, get your audio right. Make sure you have good audio. Get a decent camera, and if you need to, supplement with some lighting. Doesn't have
yeah,
to be expensive.
yeah. No, that's great. I think even, yeah, one of the more fundamental things I learned from you, Lynn, or someone else was to even hardwire into Ethernet if you have it. You and I are both I'm in a co-working space. You may be at a home office or an actual physical location. We're not floating right now in a hotel lobby or even in a hotel room or something. So we don't need Wi-Fi. We actually can hardwire, which greatly improves connectivity. We don't have lags. We don't have problems with, connectivity throughout the day. So that's just a simple thing. Can you hardwire in? Go ahead and do that. And ask all of your team who can hardwire in to Ethernet to do that. And then things like hardwiring, if you're going to use an iPad throughout the session, hardwiring directly into your computer removes
Yeah.
that lag time. You'll see these delays on lag. And so, yeah, the hardwired iPad really matters. Again, things I would not have thought of. These are the kinds of tips and tricks that were shared with me early that greatly improved the experience. The very first time I did a virtual session, they seem small, but they really, again, they stack all day long. If there's lag all day, it's pretty obnoxious, and people keep talking about it. Sorry, guys, there's a second this will catch up. There's all this time spent talking about how the tech isn't working, and people kind of watching and waiting. Versus something that just works and no one has to think about it. It's invisible, like it would be if you were on the whiteboard in person. And so, yeah, those are powerful. Talk to me a little bit, because I don't have a Vibe board. I know you have a Vibe board, Lynn. Maybe talk about that. I know that's an investment, but yeah, go there just in terms of how you're using that tool in the sessions as well.
Sure. A couple of things I want to talk about there. Still, you mentioned hardwiring into the internet, because Wi-Fi can be spotty sometimes. I've got great Wi-Fi in my house. It's an investment that I made, but I still hardwire my computer is hardwired to the internet. I want the fastest possible speeds. Um, my iPad, it's hardwired to my computer right now because I don't want to have any trouble with AirPlay, even though it's really solid. Um, I have redundancy, and again, I know I'm talking to EOS implementers here versus other teams, but if you're going to run virtual sessions and you're charging the kind of money that this requires and that teams pay, we got to have redundancies everywhere. And so I want to go there real quick because I've got, you know, I live in the U.S. and you know we're the luckiest people on earth to be born here. We have great infrastructure. I live in a great neighborhood, but dude, my power goes out all the time. I don't understand. I think we're just at the end of the line or something. We have bad storms in Louisiana. My power goes out. I'm doing expensive virtual sessions, and so I invested. I've got battery backup. I've got a generator outside. You know, when the power kicks off and that generator kicks in, it takes 20 seconds or so for that to really power up the rest of the house. And so I have battery backup on my laptop, on my monitors, on my internet, and so I don't skip a beat. In fact, it's super exciting for me when power goes out because then I feel like I'm getting a return on investment for that giant generator purchase. And it's really fun when it happens because I just hear a click. I hear a click back there and I go, oh my God, team, you don't even know what's going on. I don't have power right now. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, my power's out. And they're like, we don't get it. Maybe it's just me that gets excited about that kind of stuff. But I built in redundancies around virtual sessions that I've thought through all of the kind of the bad things that could happen. And I thought, again, my teams are paying a lot of money for me to be here and facilitate in the best the way that I can. I can't let something like a power outage stop me from delivering a great session. And so, those are just things that I think about. Now, you may have to remind me of your question because I
no, that was great. I'm glad you did that because the principle of my dad's a Boy Scout, Eagle Scout, right? He was always like, one is none, two is one. So if you don't have two of something, like you're not prepared, right? And so I love that principle. You're living that out, and I think it's a powerful. No, I was asking you about Vibe
fine.
board because the Vibe board is a specific kind of tech. It's certainly an investment, and yet there are EOS implementers who have absolutely utilized those. They're incredibly impressive tech. And I know you've utilized them. You utilize them in virtual sessions with your teams. So maybe talk to me about Vibeboard, why you invested, and how you're using it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of cool things you can do with a Vibe board. So a Vibe board, just for the audience's knowledge here, it's like a digital whiteboard. It's basically a 55-inch TV, or they have a 75-inch version. I got the 55-inch version that's mounted here on my wall. A lot of people put them on rollers, and it's a great tool in a session room, in a live session room. You can draw on it and all of those things, but what I was trying to do, Duke, when I bought one, is I wanted to recreate as best that I could the in-person experience. I want them to see me drawn. I don't. Some of my early sessions were all done in a Google Sheet, and we got tabs, and that's really effective and great. And then you can send the Google Sheet, and they've got all the different tabs for all the different things. It's super organized. But I wanted to try and bring that in the room feel. And so I wanted to draw on the board, and I want them to see my terrible handwriting, and I want it to feel real. And so I have a Vibe board, and there's a couple of things you can really cool that you can do. The Vibe board can join the Zoom call. I don't have that set up right now, but then it could be a participant, or I could share the screen and you could see the board. And so as I draw on it, you can actually see the copy. But here's what I want to show you. I want to take this to another kind of extreme. And so when I draw on my Vibe board, what I will do is I've got a 2-camera setup, Duke, and I'll switch. Well, maybe we can talk about the reactions here in a little bit, but I have a 2-camera setup, and sometimes I'll switch. And so a couple of things I want you to understand or see happen here. So one is now I'm here, and I've got my sessions kind of drawn out here. I've got like vision building day one. I've got this all built out. I've got different screens for that. We can go to the EOS model and we can say, hey, you guys are right here. And I can take my laser pointer and I can say, hey, you guys are right here, and I can draw on the board. And it becomes more of like in person. And I can actually like look right at you in the camera and I can talk to you. And what you don't see is off the screen here, I've got a big TV and with my Zoom participants. So when I'm talking to you, I'm looking right at you. So I'm looking at my Zoom people on the screen here too. So I've got a pretty interesting setup here. But what I want you to notice is my audio quality. You can still hear me, right?
Right.
Because I'm looking right at the camera and the microphone's here. But guess what? you can still hear me.
Yeah, with your back turned.
Backs to the microphone, you can still hear me because I'm wearing a lav mic that's now running through my board, and I'm talking directly into it. And so, yeah, again, shout out to Ray Salinas, kind of showing me his setup, and this is kind of where we got this idea. But like I said, I've got all of my virtual sessions kind of planned out. You can see, I can switch to the EOS model, and I can show them those sort of things, and all of that gets shared. Again, draw on it, write on it. I can create my own boards. I can draw. I can write. And so what I'm really trying to do here is I'm trying to recreate that in-person feel, that, in the room session kind of thing. Now, let me go back here just a bit. Like I said, I've got all of the kind of the virtual sessions kind of built out for annuals and quarterlies and focus days and 90s. And each one of those is a series of templates that I've built out for the session. And so what's great about this is when I'm done, let's just say I'm in my client files here and we had, law and land marketing at the end of it, I can click a button and I can export a PDF with all of the work we did today. And so, again, this is just kind of taking things, combining that technology with the in-person session room drawing on a whiteboard kind of thing, but do it in a digital kind of way.
Yeah, no, I love it. And for some would say, hey, that's amazing, Lynn. I don't have the cash right now on hand to build out that setup, but I do have an iPad, right? I'll just show really quickly a demo that's similar for somebody who is in that situation, because it's not as, I'll be honest, it's not as fancy. I'm not gonna say that it is, but I think it's powerful as well on the iPad. And so what you can do if you've used Zoom and you're somewhat familiar with it, if you go there's really, when you share your screen, there's 3 sections. There's screens, documents, and advanced. If you go to advanced, you can click on iPhone, iPad via cable. So once your iPad is hardwired in, you click on that, and then now your iPad is live. And so this would be an example of the same kind of thing for the audience to be seeing, of an actual EOS tool, and we're using it. Let's say we're going to people analyze someone to test our core values. We've got our core values here, and we've got Bill, here, and does Bill, almost always embody that value or not? And we're moving through that. Same thing. I use Notability, which is an app on the iPhone or the iPad. And at the end of the day, all the work we did, including, let's say we're doing rock setting and we're doing keep, kill, or combine, and we can see the history of how all the things that got considered, all the things that got killed and why. Maybe those then again become individual rocks for somebody, or they go to the long-term issues list to wait on a future quarter or otherwise. But at the end of the day, it's super easy for me to export a PDF file, drop it in the summary email after the session for the client to see every whiteboard, right? We do that in the session room sometimes. We take pictures of whiteboards, right? But then we have to pull all those images down, drop them in a Google Drive folder, send that to the integrator typically, and have it that way if we find value in capturing what happened on the whiteboard throughout the day. So just showing this as well as a secondary opportunity, Lynn, just for somebody who says, hey, to get me started in virtual sessions, I may not have the cash on hand to go as high tech as your current setup is. Although that's life goals for me, that's aspirational. It'd be cool to have your setup. Just want us to see that the iPad could actually get some of these things done on a budget. So yeah.
I love that. And I want you to know that if you do have aspirations for getting a Vibe board down the road, the Vibe Canvas app is available on the iPad, and all of that stuff, it syncs. And so when you get your Vibe, and all of that work that you can now be on the Vibe. And so you may want to kind of look into that. And I'm going to do a demo really quick just so you kind of see that. And now what
you're saying, I just want to make sure the audience is hearing this, Lynn. You're saying that you don't even have to walk over to your Vibe board. You can actually be standing or sitting in another place, writing on your iPad that's hardwired to the Vibe board as the display, even if you were using a Vibe board in a live conference room with a live audience gathered.
That's correct. I can be sitting at the table, and it doesn't have to be hardwired. If we're both on this kind of the same Wi-Fi network, the connection's really good there, so there's no hard wire. But I want to show you the tech just a little bit further. Just for virtual sessions. So now you can see me on the screen, and this is my Vibe board. And so this is my iPad, and I can, just like everything else, I can draw and say, hey, you're right here, or I can write, I can draw an arrow and say, hey, you're right here today, and we can draw on this, and we can go to the next sessions, and I can talk you through this the six key components of the EOS model. And again, we talk about our check-in and our healthy rules, and we have those things. And so it allows me to share my screen. And again, this is a combination of a bunch of different tools and tech. But you can use this Vibe Canvas on your iPad. You can share that screen that's connected to your computer, and you can have this same thing as sort of Notability. I used Notability until I found this app, and so this is kind of, for me, this was the next evolution of that. So just kind
Very
of
cool.
wanted you to see that you can use your iPad, share the screen, draw on it, and have great virtual sessions.
I love it. And it's just kind of a natural segue, Lynn, because we're kind of moving into software a little bit, even talking about apps. And so let's make the shift from hardware to software. What are other softwares that you feel like virtual teams benefit from? What are things that you're using in sessions as well that just help us run on EOS as a distributed team?
Yeah, there's quite a few things. So, kind of software stack for me is the Vibe Canvas software. Certainly run my sessions there. I run my own. My assistant and I have a level 10 every week, and we do everything in 90.io, which is an EOS kind of specific tool to manage your whole EOS process, the VTO, your rocks, your meetings, all of those things. There are several tools like that that I've had some experience with. There's Bloom Growth, there's EOS One, there is what's the new one?
Ready.
Strategy. I saw that this week, and people seem to really like that. There's definitely options for running EOS in a little more structured way than just pen and paper. These tools can guide you through the process a bit. If you're self-implementing 100%, even if you're working with an implementer, those kind of tools allow your implementer to kind of log in and check on you and be able to print your VTOs and kind of look at your progress. And so I don't know if you want to share any of those that you're using. I think software wise, I've used Google Sheets. I've got the Google Sheets templates built out for each section of a session, each section of a session, and that's the way that we did it for a long time. Um,
Yeah, I think
Lots of note taking tools, lots of options here.
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think my software, stack and for EOS specific for either level 10 meetings, which I lead one L10 a week. And then I have, of course, multiple sessions with clients. I do still use Google Drive. There's still a lot there that you're going to need. I still have Google Docs and certain things that live in docs or slides. I do have decks. I usually, still have Keynote if I need it. I'm starting to use Gamma a little bit more, which is an AI tool for creating slide decks. I use a lot of Zoom, but sometimes I'll have a team even request to use Microsoft Teams or Google Meet or something else. And so, spend enough time on all those platforms for this, the virtual platform itself for video. Also with you, use 90.io and have all my teams on 90, which is nice as an implementer. I'm sure you have the same experience where I get an email every week right after the L10 for all of my teams. I can see all the issues they got after. I can see the ratings. I can see all the things. It kind of keeps a pulse on all my clients every week, which I love having. But I think 90 is great. It's certainly a preference for me. What I like about it with a new client is I call it bumper bowling. I don't know if you ever went bowling with the kids and you set up the bumpers down the aisle. It's really hard. The kid can't gutter ball, right? I think an L10 meeting is new enough, and teams have their previous habits of how they've done meetings in the past. And so getting on the L10 agenda and really running it well, takes a little bit of practice, right? And so getting into 90, hitting start meeting, and we could demo this, but I won't. You guys can go to 90 on 90 demo videos on their website and or YouTube or anywhere. But when you hit start meeting, it essentially starts the shot clock, and the 5-minute check-in segue is giving you a shot clock. You're seeing where you are on check-in, and if the check-in takes 17 minutes, it's like, hey guys, that's not what an L10 is about. This is supposed to be brief. We need to be more brief in the check-in, actually. But it's telling us, it's giving us real-time feedback that we're not actually honoring the time and trusting the process of an L10 that each item on the agenda is proportionate for a reason. There's not more value necessarily in a 17-minute check-in, and we're losing other things when we make that trade. And so I think 90 is a great bumper bowling if you're getting started running on EOS to keep you on the rails to run really, really great L10s, because L10s are the glue that bring the tools and disciplines of EOS together in the most frequent manner. And then certainly some implementers use it for their quarterly sessions and for their annuals, and even for Focus Day and Visibility Day too. I've chosen not to do that. I really like some of the tools we've already mentioned as a better way of managing and simulating the live session. And so I really encourage my teams and myself to use it primarily for level 10s, but also my scorecard. And 90 just came out with a mobile app. I would say finally, I think it was long overdue that there would be a mobile app to be able to enter scorecard numbers in, like as you're making phone calls, as you're doing whatever your activities are on your scorecard, to have the ability to enter those in the app remotely, to track things remotely as well throughout the week. So yeah, that's me on software. One of the things that we see in the EOS community that I think, we are a distributed team, 850 implementers spread out. We certainly use Slack as an opportunity for core value shout outs, to celebrate where we see others on our team doing great work, embodying our values, which is part of shared by all on the VTO, right? Getting our vision shared as celebrating when somebody's really embodying a core value, that kind of thing. And so, as well as sub channels and things that can help a team to really keep things on track, particularly as a distributed team.
Yeah, I think you've made a ton of good points there. And I want to go back to you talking about how, like, using 90 to run the session itself. And I don't do that. I think it's really important that we, teach a man to fish. Right. So I want my teams to have to take the data that we created that day, and I want them to go transfer it to their VTO. I want them to have to look at it again. I want them to have to rewrite it. I want that to happen. I don't want to just do it all for them and hand it off and do that work. And so I think your point is that, but that I just wanted to make that point that we are building great leaders here. We're not just handing them the work that we did today. And that requires them to do a little work after the session. And so I want to make sure that they're still getting to do that work, and we're not just, writing all their core values with AI and we're not doing that. We're actually doing the work, and that might be a great conversation too, just kind of AI and tools around EOS. And I think that it's I don't know that the teams that we work with are as prepared for AI as they should be. And so I'm always like, throwing that kind of thing on their issues list and going, hey, how are you guys going to deal with the AI revolution that's coming? Are you guys thinking about it? And so I'm always just, as their implementer, I see trends and things in the market that, again, I don't want to force my hand or anything, but I put it on their issues list and let them discuss it.
I love it.
Anything that we can do to be aware. And so I think that's really important, something that we do. Now, there are.
Did I stop
Go
you
ahead.
there? Yeah, just
Yeah.
because you said something before we hopped on today that I think is really important. In the spirit of open and honest for your teams, you said, I do not use AI note takers in session rooms. What's said in a session room is sacred, it's trusted. I don't want people worrying that some transcript later or some video or whatever after the fact is going to be shared with people that were not in this room. If I was trying to be open and honest, it was a statement about, I trust the people around this circle to have this conversation. I'm not broadcasting this on the internet. Those are two
Right.
different environments. And so, maybe talk a little bit about that philosophical choice to say, hey, I think note takers are impressive, and I don't use them in sessions out of conviction.
Right. We're building team health here. It's the foundation of everything that we do is trust. And I want us to trust each other, and I want us to be able to say the things that we need to say in a session room without fear of that being recorded, that being broadcast, that being held against you later, or archived, so to speak. And so I don't allow note takers in my session room. They're great tools. I think they're amazing. They give you a good recap of what happened. I don't allow them in my session rooms. Don't allow you to record the session even. I want this to be as open and honest as possible. I want to eliminate any objection somebody might have to actually speaking their mind. So it's really important to me. That's one of the rules. No recording, no note takers. This is us, and we got to be real and raw here. And so I think from that standpoint, I don't allow those things in the session room.
Okay. Yeah. And then this is maybe a little bit of diversion, but it's something I think is very interesting around the statement you made about AI and getting ready for it. I actually think EOS because it's built on first principles of just the fundamentals of the things you have to do well to run a great business. I think there are principles of EOS that are almost pre-steps for utilizing AI. And so, for example, I will use the accountability chart. Most companies have not functionalized their accountability chart down to understand every function that must happen inside their business, right? They have an org chart that has titles, and it's more about marketing and business cards and maybe who do you report to, and those things are fine. EOS, we take it way further, right? We want to understand every function of the business. That's a great step for even utilizing agentic AI and training agents to do really specific functions inside an organization. But if you've already done the work of having a really clear and concise accountability chart, you're more pre-qualified or pre-prepared, so to speak, to go after maybe training an agent to do something that's very repetitive and boring so that you can redeploy that employee to do higher touch relational work, because the nursing a spreadsheet or just entering this data and making sure it gets to all the places it needs to get or whatever is being automated, again, by an AI agent. And so as I've thought about AI, I've actually just been more and more encouraged by the work that Gino and the early implementers did to get down to first principles, because it's really sound as a foundation, even for looking at some of the tools that are coming down the hopper with AI.
Um, I told my son really early, he was pretty young, and I'm like, hey, son, I think someday, we were trying to encourage him. I said, someday either, you'll tell the robots what to do, or the robots will tell you what to do. And so, what side of that do you want to be on? And so AI is here, and it's going to continue to be here. I would say that if you have a company today and you're not embracing or understanding AI, you're gonna struggle in the future. And so I think it's really important that we as humans, as companies, understand AI. I want to be the guy telling AI what to do. I want to be the one using the tool. And there are teams out there that you know could lose you're not going to lose your job because of AI, but you'll lose your job to someone who understands AI in your role. And so if you're in a role that, I don't know, if you want your job, if you want job security, understand AI, understand how to use it in your role best. And so while we're there, there's going to be people out there using AI for EOS help. And I think EOS was really smart, is they got ahead of that and they said, hey, there's going to be people using ChatGPT, so why not train the model accurately? And so there is two different options here for AI that have actually been trained by EOS worldwide. In ChatGPT, there's an EOS AI with a TM trademark. That's a tool that EOS trained on in ChatGPT. And then recently, Mark O'Donnell, his son, actually trained another model on EOS, and it's trending very, very accurately to give you. EOS purity is really important to EOS implementers. We want you to run EOS as purely as possible. AI will tell you what you want to hear. Unfortunately, it's a big pat on the back most of the time. And so, if we know you're going to use AI to do EOS, use the right models. The URL for that is eosbot.ai. That's another one you can kind of take a look at. That one's been trained really, really well on EOS. Now,
Great.
do I think something for EOS implementers to think about is EOS going to replace our jobs?
Yeah. Here's my take on that. I love that. I want people to go in and get accurate information. I want all my teams to have the right answer to the question they have real time, around a tool or a discipline of EOS. That's just reinforcing all the teaching and the training. But as EOS implementers, we're teachers, we're coaches, and we're facilitators of team health. And I think Don Tenney, this year at the annual conference for EOS, who was the second implementer next to Gino, one of the OGs of OGs, who he said that EOS implementers are entrepreneurial peacemakers. He said, at the end of the day, if you can get in and help a team get healthy and stay healthy, that's a tremendous amount of the value that we actually bring to our teams is having them force, having them gently forcing them into all the hard and necessary conversations, staying really current, staying really high trust, really getting after all the things. Because our teams, after 2 years, yes, if we're doing our job, they should know the tools like the back of their hand. They should be able to take them to a new company and install them themselves, right? If we've done our job. But I think the relational side is so important. And maybe those who've never had a professional implementer don't know how important it is that we facilitate team health and that we build that, the trust in the room and sometimes help the teams have the conversations they're just not quite able to have on their own. And to build the trust that somehow it's hard to build on our own. And so I love that you said that. I actually feel great about the tools getting more and more clear to the world. We want to see 1 million companies running on EOS. We want them to run it pure. AI is certainly going to be a part of that conversation. You'd much rather have the pure version out there than some really half-baked answers. And I have seen some half-baked answers as I've tested certain general AI on EOS where it says the wrong answer. I know the right pure answer. So it is important for people to know where they're getting that data.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that great teams are built on trust. The great team's not built on politeness or avoiding tough conversations. It's built on trust and accountability and commitment to the truth. And so that's where your EOS implementer comes in. Is I'm not going to sugarcoat things. I'm your coach. It is my job to push you into artificial intelligence. We'll give you a pat on the back. Like you give it a problem, it'll say, oh, it will pat you on the back and tell you you're right. It's a weird model. That's not the coaching model that we have. Our coaching model is to call out things that look wrong to us, or at least have you have the conversation. Have you considered this? Have you thought through this, and really facilitate the answer that's already in the room. But sometimes, we talk about great coaches. Tiger Woods had a golf coach. That coach was not as good at golf as Tiger Woods, but he got to see things that Tiger couldn't see. We say you can't see yourself playing the game. A good friend of mine says a little more country. He says you can't see the picture when you're standing in the frame, right? And we as EOS implementers are standing outside the frame, and we get to look at your team and see things that you can't see. And it's our job to call them out and help you, get clarity around the challenges you're facing that aren't right in front of your face. So, do I think we'll be replaced by AI? I don't think it's possible. I don't think AI can look you in the eye. I love looking around the room and seeing the size and the eye rolls and the uncomfort and calling it out. AI is never going to be able to do that. I think we're safe.
Yeah, it's so true. AI is really is a left brain, linear linguistic brain, and the right brain, emotional, limbic resonance, the ability to really read a human and understand a human, I think is the unique opportunity of humans. And I don't think AI is even close. So when people talk about, hey, I'm going to have an AI best friend or an AI romantic partner, or an AI counselor or an AI implementer, I'm like, I don't think you understand right brain, limbic system. What does it really mean to connect and relate relationally? And I just don't think it's going to get there. I don't think it'll ever replace the human. And what's exciting, though, is that it might help us get to where we spend more and more of our time on the human elements, because the easy left brain linguistic language stuff is just, or even like the data entry stuff or whatever the rote stuff is just happening in the background so automatically that we get to go and be client facing, right? We get to go spend more time in the relational parts or the orchestrative layer of what it means to get and do great work, adding value with clients and with the market. So as we're kind of, go ahead.
Sorry, I think you made a great point there, and I really want to talk about this. I'm going to jump on my soapbox for just a second because I love this topic. I owned a marketing agency for 26 years, so I know this to be a fact. Marketers ruin everything. And so, do you remember how fun it was when you used to get email? It said like you got mail. I'm like, oh, that's great. And then remember how much you hate email now? Remember how fun it was to get text messages? And now it's, oh God, like, well, I think and I believe that AI is a very similar kind of thing. And as marketers figure out how to use it, you're going to realize that every piece of content online is now AI generated. I think it's going to start to get ignored. And I think just like your emails, just like your text, just like your phone calls, I think that stuff is just going to start to get ignored, which brings an opening for human connection. And that's the part that I love, and that's the part that I want. While your robots are going to be picking up the phone and calling your clients, I'm going to pick up the phone and call mine. I'm going to have a human connection with my clients. I'm going to have a human connection with my prospects. I'm going to have a human connection with my connectors. Can't replicate that.
Absolutely. And you can't replicate, yeah, trust and all the things that happen when somebody knows that they're opening up to someone they really trust about something that's hard and helping them move forward with that as a team. Well, Lynn, as we're kind of landing the plane today, anything else that, we think would add value for, a distributed team who's saying, hey, we really do want to optimize. We want great L10s or great sessions remotely with our distributed team. Anything else that we should leave the crew with?
Yeah, I probably I want to I guess I want to ask you too, like what are your top facilitation tricks, or if there's anything that we can share that maybe we haven't covered today. Um, just for example, I want to make sure that I control the screen and I control the order that people are in, and there's a setting in Zoom that allows me to set the host's order, or make everybody else follow the host's order, and that can drag the people in the order that I want. So they always know the order of who's next. But if they don't, I'll also say, all right, Duke, let's go to you. And Ashley, you're next. And I always like guide them. I'm always like keeping them aware that, hey, you're next, because nobody wants to be surprised, like, and get called on. So I'm always guiding the process there. I think that's great in a session room or not in a session room. But on Zoom, I think it's especially important. We take a lot of breaks. I think we touched on that point a little bit, maybe even before the call. Breaks in Zoom are real breaks. We shut off our cameras. We turn off. Talk about that for a second. I'd love to hear more about the way you do that.
Yeah, so I do say with my teams, if we're on a break, turn off your camera and and mute your microphone. And it does two things. One, go take an actual break, and then when you come back and turn back on your camera and microphone, we know you're back, and we can kind of see around the corner that everybody's back. Just like if you were in a live conference room and people are in the bathroom, when a team member has not come back yet, right? It's very obvious that the team is whole and we're ready to move forward. So yeah, we try to simulate that as best we can. And it works really well with that rule. I think what you said though about energy on full day virtual sessions with distributed teams, we usually go somewhere between 30 to 45 minutes of a full lunch. And I'll encourage my teams, if they can, if the weather's permissible, to go outside, get sunlight, move your body. Get the energy flowing. Sometimes even on breaks, we'll have them do. You mentioned jumping jacks or do something. In the session room, I'll use Tenzi, which is this dice energy game, right? Where you're just rolling 10 dice to see who can get all the same face the fastest. There's actually an app for that. You can do.
Oh, wow.
You can do the app version of that. You can do other games and things just to say, hey, I'm feeling the energy dip in the afternoon after lunch. People are sitting there, slow responses. It just feels like the energy's down. We do that in the session room. We do that virtually, right? We're just saying, hey, when the energy is not where it needs to be for us to do great work as an implementer, we have to facilitate. We have to interject and change the energy in the room to get us back on track to finish the day strong. And so those are things that we're paying attention to, again, whether in the room with clients or virtually. Yeah, I mean, I think those are a lot of them. I think sometimes the only thing we probably haven't talked about is preparation, giving them really clear expectations coming into a session, and really good communication after the session. Sometimes you discover that the communication on either ends of an L10 or of a full day session can often strengthen the work that we do together. And sometimes post meeting, you discover something that requires an encouraging a same page meeting between a visionary and an integrator. Whether you pick that up in the room or you pick that up virtually, right? There's follow up that you go and take from there, that kind of thing. So I do think all the rules of being an EOS implementer or doing great facilitation certainly apply post meeting when you're leaving a session with a virtual team.
Yeah, I think that's really good. Got to keep the energy high in the room. We've done things like, hey, all right, guys, impromptu dance party. Get up from your chair, and I'll play music, and make them just stand up for 30. It's 30 seconds. Like, come on, guys, everybody could do that. 30 seconds, get the energy back up. And my implementer, he made us do the haka, and we got up and he taught us the haka, and we did. Like I haven't done that in a session room, but it was pretty cool. It's just one of those things where you just have to keep the energy up in the room. There's some technology things that you can do. Obviously, we do accountability chart, and we say congratulations. We put somebody in the seat. There's gestures and things that you can do on both Zoom and on a Mac and things like that. I think those are fun. I think the double fingers like this is that the confetti one, and you can celebrate that way. There's a double thumbs one where you can have fireworks in the background, things like that. And if you're really, really rocking out, you can do this one and go, and you can get the sort of lasers and things like that. So you can kind of do things like that to make your sessions more fun. I ask my teams, use the reactions, use the thumbs up, use the hearts, use them, have them things on the screen. Let's make this a little more interactive. And I tell a lot of dumb dad jokes in my session room. And so I love doing that. And one of them I always tell is when we're talking about delegate and elevate, and so we tell them that, hey, you guys just keep taking more on and more on and more on, eventually end up looking like a moron. And then I've got a rim shot, and so we've got some. We got some stuff like that you can kind of add to the room, and some applause and things like that. And so you can use technology to make this fun. I got a rubber. Let me see if I can make that stop. I got a rubber chicken around here somewhere that I pull out every now and then. Like, guys, we got to make this entertaining. We got to make it fun. Nobody wants to be in a session room for 8 hours, especially on a Zoom call. And so what you said about preparation is really, really important. Scott Resnack had a post in our EOS Implementer Slack channel about how he handles preparation. And I've adopted that, and we're trying to get our teams to do it. And I just let him know that, like, guys, if we come prepared, if you come really prepared for this meeting, you've done your homework, and you can think through your potential rocks ahead of time, get prepared. We can get out here in 6 hours. Like, we're going to take however long it takes. Like, I don't have a time limit. I don't set a time limit. I've gone 10, 12-hour sessions because my clients needed it. Mm-hmm. But if I can convince them to prepare, and we tell our clients that a 90-minute meeting, a great 90-minute meeting, starts before the 90-minute meeting. You got to come prepared. You got to have your numbers. You got to be ready for that. The same thing is true here in these long virtual sessions. If you guys come prepared and you're fired up, you're ready to go, we can actually accomplish our objectives in a shorter amount of time. And so preparation for these sessions is really vital. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to share. I got more tech that maybe you want to see. We can talk about OBS and that really quickly. I know we've been here for a bit. But I would love to show you just a little bit further that I've taken kind of the EOS session room virtually. And so, I have this camera view, and you're looking at me, and this is great. But I can also do things like I can just pull up the EOS model right on my screen. I can talk about walking through the 6 key components of your business. I can talk through the vision and people and data and issues and process and traction. And I can walk you through that with the visual here. I didn't have to share a Zoom screen. It's here on my screen. I can pull up,
I want to say something about that, because the energy difference between what you just did, Lynn, and pulling up a huge slide and then you becoming this tiny little keyhole, right, that we're looking at, it's totally different from an energy standpoint. Like, I still have Lynn, I have all of your personality, have all your energy, but I still get the clarity. Like, I have the model as well, right? And so you're making, Lynn is still the facilitator, the coach, the teacher. You're still primary, your energy's primary, and yet I do get the point. And you're reminding me of the model, which I just think is a powerful tool, in facilitation.
Right. Hey, let's go over today's agenda. Let's talk about our objectives. Let's have fun, and now I'm just pulling this up on the screen. This is our focus day agenda. If I want to switch over, maybe it's a vision building day. So now I'm talking about vision building day 1 or 2. Maybe it's a quarterly, and I'm talking through quarterly objectives. Maybe you just have no idea who I am, and so I throw up a lower third. But again, there's technology here that allows you to do some kind of cool things in the session room that make these things really, really good. There is, again, a little stigma on an in-person versus virtual. And I said in the beginning, I'm here to smash that. I'm here to let people know that we can have incredible virtual sessions through the use of just great facilitation, great communication, great audio, great video, and then throw in a little tech and a little bit of fun. And we can have great sessions. And so lots of great things I can do. I can send us on a break and throw up the timer. I can start a timer here. I'm sharing that. I don't have to share my screen. I've got my countdown timer on here, and here we go. It's break to come back at whatever time, right? And so there's a lot of different things I could do. I can share my iPad screen where I'm guiding you through that, and I move myself into a corner there so you could see it, and you could see me right in real time. And so this is kind of done through a piece of software called OBS. It's a broadcast studio software. There's another one from Mac called Ecamm Live. It's another option. I'm testing out OBS right now. I'm kind of starting to work that into my session room. But with that, my Viboard view, my other views, just the fun that we interject, and again, you gotta call on the people who are quiet. You got to get everybody involved. You got to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I love it.
And sometimes you got to let the silence do the work. Sometimes it's silent. Oh, one of the things that you mentioned, you talked about when really quickly, you talked about when sending people on a break. You told them to shut down the camera, turn that off, because I know when you're back, because I can see everybody. I do that when we say, hey guys, take 3 quiet minutes to to write your check-in. I ask them, I say, okay, this is going to work best if everybody mutes themselves right now. And when you're done, unmute yourself. And then I know when everybody's unmuted that we can go forward. And so you know that awkward little bit of silence. You're like, hey guys, you ready? You need more time? You need more time? You ready? You can get around that by kind of asking them to just mute and then unmute when they're ready. That way, it's a great facilitation tip.
Yeah, little tips like that can save you time, and like the multiple questions. Is everybody ready? Okay, what about now? And all the extra time you're spending just trying to get that clarity. So yeah, how do we create it virtually? How do we let people have a signal that we know, whether it's thumbs up and everybody's got the thumbs up, or like you said, unmute, super clear. And we can move forward with when everybody's ready. So yeah, those are great things. Well, Lynn, as we kind of move to conclude, let's talk about, just one of our core values at EOS is just help first. So I know that's your heart, that's your spirit. What are some things that we could offer? I mean, I'm certainly willing to offer a 20-minute just a check-in call for somebody with a distributed team that's like, hey, you mentioned this, like, how does that work? Can you show me that? That kind of thing, or even, of course, a 90-minute session. Any team that's self-implementing that's saying, hey, there's some things I'm learning about implementers that I may be open to, and realizing we may need professional implementation. And a free session for 90 minutes is always that first step with that team to really decide if EOS is right for them at that level, and if we're right as a coach. But is that an offer you're willing to make as well, or anything else that you would say as a next step for folks who are listening today?
Oh my gosh, of course. I love, I get a little passionate about this and I get a little fired up, but I love EOS. EOS changed my life. And when you hear my story, you'll realize EOS saved my life. I drank all the EOS Kool-Aid. I'm in. Like, if you want help with EOS, definitely. I've got a 15-minute slot on my calendar. I've got a booking link that you can just grab. We'll share that in this kind of the show notes or the description. And then, 100%. Let's jump on a quick call. Let me help understand the issue that you have, and I'll guide you in the right direction. But again, like you said, if you do think this is something that you want help with, maybe you've been self-implementing and it's just you're not getting the traction that you want. You're not, no pun intended, but you're not really getting the movement that you want on your team, and it's not going as fast as you'd hoped. A professional implementer, certified implementer can help you go further and faster than you ever thought were possible. And so if you want that, or you think you want that, let's book that 90-minute meeting. Book it with Duke, book it with me. Kind of check our facilitation style, see what works for you. And then, happy to do that anytime, any day.
Yeah. I love it. Well, it's been a lot of fun, Lynn. I knew it was going to be, but it certainly didn't disappoint. I didn't know the sound effects were coming. There were some surprises along the way, but it was awesome. So it was fun to do this with you today.
I wish I would have surprised you with the chicken. That would have been fun, but I don't see it. It's not right here. So
yeah, it's great.
Really, really great day. I appreciate you coming up with this idea, wanting to help distributed teams, wanting them to understand that these sessions don't have to be this monotonous 8-hour thing. These are actually fun. They're interactive, and like you said, I think the most important thing, our session ratings are really high. I mean, I'm consistently 9.4, 9.5 across 150 to 160 sessions. And and that's with people that say, "Oh, I never give anything a 10." There's always room for improvement. So even with that, that guy, that happens in almost every session. Even with that, sessions are great. My clients are having massive improvement. And at the end of the day, Duke and I are just trying to help you guys live the EOS life. We want you to do what you love with people you love. We want you to have a massive impact on your team and on your clients. We want you to be appropriately compensated, and we want to help you get back some of that time. We know that when you started this business, you had this vision of, gosh, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to have this free time and this money and this stuff. And oh God, it's not, for most of us, it's not like that at all. And so Duke and I are just committed to helping you guys get back some balance in your life, because that's what EOS is about. It's about balancing work, home, finances, team. It's really about managing human capital.
I love that. Well, and that's such a powerful closer, because it's like even teams that, again, don't have the luxury of getting in the room all the time with one another can still live the EOS life, can still get all those things, can still run a really great company on EOS with the tools. And we just have to optimize for that reality and say, that's your situation. Let's make the very most of it. And it can happen, right? We're seeing it happen with distributed teams, and it's just really exciting. So thanks for all your work, all the contributions you've made, all the things you've taught me along the way. And so just really excited that we got to have this conversation, and hope it serves some of the companies that are running on EOS that, again, have distributed teams out there. So yeah, great work. It was a great day.
Dude, thank you so much. Thanks for having me here. I learned stuff too. I learned stuff from you today, and so I've got some notes here for myself. So I think that's what's amazing about the community, is everybody's just so open and honest and giving. And I hope that there's other EOS implementers out here who are watching this that are just saying, "Oh man, I want to learn to be better at virtual sessions," and reach out. And for those that are just like, "Hey, I'm never going to do a virtual session," I just want you to know that virtual sessions can be very powerful for your team. So if one of your teams just has to go virtual and it's not something you want to do, there's certainly a whole community of virtual EOS implementers who are really skilled at this, who you can refer your clients to. And so with that, great day, great seeing you.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thanks, Lynn.
Thanks, Duke.